welcome back to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. And on today's episode, we are revisiting episode 1 that launched it all. I received some spicy feedback, shall we say, but I also received a lot of very positive feedback. Positive feedback is easy to digest. Spicy feedback is a little bit more challenging, especially when it's coming from the people that you hope, support, and love you the most. Now, Jessica is returning. She's asking me the question. She is in the therapist seat this week, and honestly, I loved it. However, that being said, we did start using a new platform, so you can watch this episode everywhere. And in using that new platform, we were having a few sound issues. So Jessica does have a bit of an echo, but honestly, it's really not that bad. Just letting you know, just in case you're like, do they realize that there's 2 Jessicas talking at the same time and there's only one Josh? We do. We do. All that being said, I think this is a really helpful episode, and it's one that I've been looking forward to sharing because I think it's really important that if I'm being vulnerable, if I'm being open and having other guests on that are also being vulnerable and open, we should revisit these episodes and talk about how people have reacted, because sometimes we have to take some time to digest the feedback, good and bad. We have to talk to our therapist. We have to talk to our friends. We have to think about how we want to move forward with the information we have received. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, all the feels. Welcome back. Sit down, relax. And if you want a visual instead of the audio, head on over to YouTube and you can watch us there. So let's hit it. Hello, Jessica Thompson, and welcome back to another episode of Hot Air. With who? With me, Joshua Robert. With who else? Jessica Thompson. We're back for round 2.
And I'm wearing my therapist cardigan.
You are a therapist today. This is the first visual episode of Hot Air, so people can actually see that you dressed like a smart therapist today. And I'm scared already. Cheers.
Why? Don't be scared.
Scared
is the last thing I want you to feel.
Oh, thank you, therapist Thompson. So before we get into it, I love full transparency. So you are going to be kind of guiding this episode.
Yes.
Because we attempted to record it yesterday and it ended up just being me venting for like 20 minutes. And that's not beneficial for people listening. For me,
for the
maybe.
Listener.
But for people really listening, nobody's going to want to sit there and listen to that. And at first, when you were like, I don't think this is the direction you want to go with this episode, because literally just me bitching and complaining, I was like, why not? I was like, I'm working right now. I was perturbed. But then after I gave it some thought, I was like, yeah, probably right, because we want Hot Air to be helpful, relatable. It's not just about me venting. Sometimes it happens, but that's not the goal here.
Well, and I think it's really important for me. I'm really proud of the episode that we did. And it's really important for me 2 things. One, that you are always the best version of yourself in these scenarios, and that you are received well. And 2, that we're doing something that's actually going to help people, whether it's on the queer side who are struggling with having difficult conversations with their family, or on the ally side, people who are either beginning their allyship journey or who are, trying to understand what they can do better. And so I let you go on last night because I thought you needed it, and I think you really did. And then we had a conversation around what I thought the best direction of the podcast should be.
Right.
Because as my
Which is
podcast,
why you are
Hot Air,
the producer.
As host of Hot Air. No, but I think
Thompson Hot Air 2.0.
I think we do agree that this is a better direction for it. But we had a good chat last night, and I think you said some things you needed to say, and those things just don't have to be posted online. So why don't we start by you just doing a quick recap for anyone who hasn't listened to the first episode. Although, if you'd like to pause it now, you can go back, listen to it. come back
Yes.
to
If you
this.
haven't, a lot of what we're going to talk about on this episode might
Mhm.
not 100%
Um,
make sense.
but we've
So
also had
listening
some
to episode 1 would be helpful.
totally, and you've had some awesome episodes in between. So we're gonna call this the after show. And why don't you start by giving us a bit of a recap on episode one, what happened in that episode, and then we'll get into what happened afterwards.
Yes, and as you can tell, Jessica has taken the reins and she's going to guide this episode, which I'm glad. It's probably for the best. So, episode 1 was all about allyship specific to the LGBTQ plus community. I shared a few stories about how I felt friends and family were not necessarily 100% allies. I felt that I was sharing my truth, sharing something that has been on my mind for a really long time. And then we kind of went back and forth about what you feel because you are an ally to all walks of life that are not the majority population. So I felt that you had, knowledge to offer, which is why I asked you to do it with me. And so we kind of just
Yes.
went back and forth about why or what people can do better, how they can
Yeah.
better support their family members or friends, and what it means to be a true ally versus a performative ally.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just got into all the feels in regards to
Yeah.
allyship.
You were very vulnerable in sharing some experiences that you had, because I think what you said, if I can paraphrase, is that even
Please
for
do.
you as a queer person, you are also going through an experience of learning what an ally actually is. And if I can
Hmm.
just speak a little bit to um, my experience watching you, because we've known each other since we were 14. I've known you since you were straight,
Very.
which not a lot of people have. Um, I have watched you really struggle with your queerness. I have watched you struggle with a lot of aspects in life. You have always been a very confident person. But one of the things that you do to cover up your insecurities is you are bold and you are overconfident.
Me?
So oftentimes for a lot of people who don't know you, as well as I
It can
do,
be a little jarring.
it can be also a little confusing. You know, you see someone who is, and I'm also the same way. You see someone who's very confident, they're loud, they're vocal, they're all these things. And so it's a surprise when people hear that you're struggling. And no one is going to be the same person at 14 that they are at 30,
Right.
30 something, 37, 36,
I'm sorry,
37.
I'm 27. Two people this weekend asked me how old I was. I said yes, and they said 27. So I'm
Mm,
27.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
And
Super.
Leatherface is 15. Uh, just kidding. I love you. You look
I'm
great.
sorry, but I'm glowing right
You
now.
look great.
Thank
My
you.
Botox is worn off and you look great. But the point of what I'm trying to say is that you and I both have a very specific personality type, and to hear that you struggled or had a different experience than you might have portrayed should not be surprising to people who know you, because
Right.
that's just how we grew up in the age that we grew up in the early aughts. You know, we were living in a culture of deep misogyny, of eating disorders, of homophobia, of even just looking back at the films from back then to now.
Mhm.
There's a big difference. There's a big difference. And also who you are as a person is going to change over 20 something years.
Yes, you would
So
hope so.
so we'll get into more of the reactions that we got later, but I did just want to preface it by saying that nobody should be surprised that you were struggling. No one should have been surprised that you maybe withheld information, and no one should have been surprised that maybe you compensated for your ability to have vulnerable, tricky emotions with being bold and brass and maybe cunty
Right.
sometimes. Um,
Right.
so
And there's like a spectrum of struggling because it's not like what we talked about with something that like weighed me down every single day. I mean, yes and no, it did. It wasn't like super, super heavy. At least I didn't think so at the moment when we were doing that episode. Now, thinking back on it and some of the positive responses, like you said, people saying I was vulnerable and that like people were proud of me for just opening up. I didn't consider any of that. I just was thought I was just sharing my truth and my story. And now that I've received some of those responses and then looking back on like the last few years, it's like maybe it was a bigger issue for me than I originally thought it was. I don't think it's something that like was like maybe I just haven't given it enough thought for it to be something that was so
And
large.
isn't that a
Does that
beautiful
make sense?
experience to have? Isn't it a beautiful experience to be able to reflect back and have the ability to go, maybe I didn't realize that, and to be able to explore that. Like that's one of the
Right.
privileges you and I both have with therapy. And I'm sorry, I do keep touching my headphones because um
That's fine.
I'm using Oliver's and he has big boy ears and I have little girl ears.
You have a child's ear.
I do, and a child-sized head, but a woman-sized brain. But isn't that a beautiful experience to have, to be able to go back and reflect on some of these things and to continue with your journey of growth? Because this podcast
Right.
came out of your journey of growth. And
Right.
I'm really excited to see you putting these things out there. What more self learning, self evolution it's going to lead to. So,
Right. And we're allowed to change our minds. We're allowed to reflect on things. We are allowed to alter our
absolutely.
perspectives all the time. So
Um,
there's nothing wrong with changing it up.
Maya Angelou said,
Oh,
do the
Maya.
best with what you know until you know better, and then do
Hmm.
better. And that is not, that is something that shouldn't feel bad or sticky. I have always said I have the absolute right to change my mind and grow. We should all be
Hmm.
growing. Okay, we could continue on,
We could.
but
But let's. You've got a nice list.
I would
Let's
like to take
go
the
through your
reins
list.
and I would like to ask you a few questions. So,
Please
um,
do so.
first of all, how are you doing?
I knew you were gonna start with that. How am I doing?
How are you
Honestly,
doing?
I'm really tired today.
Okay.
Today specifically tired.
Physically or
Have not been
emotionally or mentally?
honestly, I think all of
Okay.
physically and mentally,
There's no wrong answer.
not emotionally.
Okay.
Physically, my body be tie. Mentally, I'm like at the office not long ago, just like what's happening? Where am I?
Yeah.
Fluorescent lights are not my friend. They make me so
Ugh.
tired, and of course, staring at a computer screen kills you.
You know
But
a man installed fluorescent lights everywhere. Like, ugh, ugh.
idiots. And he obviously was very, very straight or closeted. Um, yeah, so
Okay.
physically my body is like tired, but like I'm good. I have been for a while looking forward to this episode doing it because I feel like it's gonna be
Yeah.
therapy. But physically I'm ready to go to bed.
Okay. And
Yes.
how how have you been doing since the episode came out? Just high level.
Well,
High level.
that's a loaded question.
High level.
How have I been doing? I have been very irritable.
Mm, I
I
hadn't
have been
noticed.
processing. No,
No.
weird. I have been processing a lot of keep wanting to use the word backlash, the responses to episode 1. So processing that with my therapist and then of course on my own, figuring out what to do with some of the information from various persons that I received. Um, but then also celebrating or trying my best to celebrate the positive feedback and a lot of the good things because there was far more good than there was negative responses. But I've just yeah, the first like week or two after, terrible mood, irritated, not great. And then I just like took a pause. My therapist said something to me. He was like, "When in doubt, just do nothing." And so I was like, "Sweet," because I have no idea what to do with the information I've received, the feedback I've received, the negative feedback I've received. So I was like, "I'm just not going to do anything. I'm not going to respond to those people. I'm not going to engage until I know where I want to go with the next steps in the conversation I'm going to have." So then I felt a little bit more peaceful, but it's been like what up and down, wavy roller coaster ride of emotions
Yeah.
since episode 1.
Well, I just want to say, as your friend, I think the reason why you keep going to say backlash is because you did receive a lot of responses, and I would say they were overwhelmingly positive. However,
Yes.
and we will get into this in a bit, um, the responses from the people that you value the most were tough responses. I'm not going to say they were
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmingly negative. I would say they were tough responses to have to hear, to process, to navigate. Um,
Yeah.
why are you laughing?
Because I'm just thinking about the
Oh, I thought you were laughing at
responses.
me. I was gonna say,
So
I will
I'm
kill
like,
you. I
oh
will jump through
no.
the screen.
No, I'm actually not
Um,
at all. I'm like, oh God.
so my next question is, did you, and we're gonna navigate right into the tough part.
Okay.
I want to say, I want to reaffirm what I think is so important with this podcast. The last episode, we really were trying to provide support for people. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, in the vein of transparency and vulnerability, it's really easy for us to have that conversation and record it, and talk
Right.
about all these things. It's another completely different thing to publish it. And when you do, you are opening up the opportunity for everyone to have their own experience and
Correct.
their own perspective. And everyone's reality is what it is. But I think one of the big things we tried to get across in the last episode was, as an ally, as family, as parents or parental figures or people that have a responsibility to love you, what that looks like. And I think ultimately, you can't control what other people think or do, but you can control how you respond to that. And I think it
Right.
is very real for us to sit back and discuss, okay, so you've had a tough conversation. That could be either from the queer side or from the receiving side on it as an ally. What next? What happens
Right.
next? I want to ask you, did you get the response that you were expecting? And what was the response that you were expecting slash hoping for?
Okay, before I answer that, you said something about how people are going to basically receive your message based on their reality, something along those lines. Is at least what I took
Yeah,
from you, what you were just saying. And podcast aside, had I sat down one on one with whoever it is that I wanted to share the allyship information with, their response, even if it wasn't a podcast, I feel would have been the same
that's fair.
and is also, yes, based in their reality. And that's something I'm finding challenging is trying to communicate my reality and help people see where I'm coming from, which is probably when like my brash, like cursing and this and that
Do you think
comes in
that
because I end up getting frustrated and flustered and
so for context for the listeners, you moved away like the school bell ended on the last day of high school and you were already
yes, I
boarding a
was
plane.
out 18 years
Lived
old, gone.
you have lived away, physically away from your family for your entire adult life. Do you think
Mhm.
any of those issues has something to do with the fact that you are so far physically removed from your family?
For sure. I think that it has, but that's probably the biggest issue or
Okay.
the biggest thing that adds to the already existing issues because although they can love me and support me, I'm
Hmm.
technically an outsider. I'm not involved in their daily life. I'm not involved in when they hang out for Easter or Christmas or Halloween or birthdays or things
Can I
like that,
reframe
right?
that?
So,
They're not
yes.
involved in your life on a day-to-day basis. They're not involved
Correct.
in your life on birthdays, on Christmases, on Easter.
Yeah.
So
No, you're right. It
I want
goes
to
both
just
ways.
reframe that because I do see you framing it so often as you being involved in their life. But I think it
Right.
takes effort to be involved both ways. And I think for the context of this
Right.
conversation, it's important to acknowledge that they're not involved in yours.
Right. I mean, the big thing
Mhm.
is that and we talked about this, I think we did on episode 1, is that I put in a lot of the effort. I bring a lot of things to the
Right.
table. I do my best to communicate
Hmm.
effectively and also stay in communication. I'm always the one who FaceTimes. I'm usually the one who texts. I'm the
Right.
one who flies there for holidays. And
Yes.
that is not reciprocated. And that's actually something my therapist and I have been talking a lot about. And he's made me even see it because it's such a habit for me to
Yes.
just
Hmm.
do to make it easier for everyone else. And nobody, in my opinion, even acknowledges or considers what I have to go through just so I can come to Canada to visit family. And
If I could just
when I
say,
say nobody, I mean I'm specifically talking about
your
family.
family,
I don't mean
yes.
friends. My friends definitely, you are definitely
And by
aware
the way, if you could just
of
come
the
back,
effort.
I'd really appreciate that because I miss
Well,
you.
that's funny. I was supposed to be there in what, 48 hours?
Okay, so
Okay,
the
back.
question was,
What was the question?
did you get the response that you were expecting? And what was the response that you were genuinely hoping for?
I did not anticipate, I never once thought about what is the response I'm going to get
Okay.
until I posted the episode. I would think I was just in that creation mode where
Mm-hmm.
I'm like designing the logos and the thumbnails, and I was just excited to start this because I've been
Mm-hmm.
talking about it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really like consider. I mean, I definitely thought about like, oh, like this might rub people the wrong way, or people might not get it, or whatever. But I didn't expect. I never thought like people were going to be upset with me to the point that they are, and so I really didn't have any expectation. I would have hoped, like once I put the episode out, I hoped that. Well, I didn't even think my family was going to listen to it. I really didn't.
Okay.
I did not think that anyone I was related to was going to take the time to listen to it. And that is a whole another issue in and
That's
of
a whole other
itself.
episode.
Why I feel that way, I'm not 100% sure. So I was like, I mean, my mom still hasn't listened to it because I can guarantee if she did, she wouldn't be texting me like normal.
My
And
mom
she's texting
did.
me
Shout
like
out
normal.
Deborah.
And your mom did.
Or
And
no,
people
mom
people
mom
did.
watched it. Deborah watched it.
She watched it. Yeah,
Shout
she
out
watched the
Deborah. She
podcast. I
watched
mean,
it.
now you can watch the
Hi,
podcast,
mommy.
but back then you couldn't. Hello, Deborah. We should do an episode with your mom.
No
Wouldn't that
thanks.
be?
We're good. Love you, mom.
I'll do one with her. We'll talk about you. Um,
Okay, great.
so yeah, I didn't really have any expectations. I thought the only person that later I was like, if my mom listens, she might be pissed off about the story that I told. But again, I was like, it's my truth. These
Yeah.
are factual things that happened.
Mhm.
Nobody was killed in the making of this episode, so like I didn't think anybody was
Right.
going to be upset.
Okay.
And they are.
My next question is, as your experience stands right now, is there anything you would have done differently? Is there anything you
That's
would have
it.
done
Okay.
differently? Yeah.
I had intended on telling my dad and my mom the two stories I was going to tell about them
Okay.
at the beginning of the podcast. And I did not. So perhaps I could have shared with them, this is what I'm saying, this is whatever. But I also don't think that anything I said was so bad that it warranted a heads up or like buffering or like kind of warning people
And I'm going to
because again,
interject. Nothing what you said was bad, period.
thank you. And everybody else that for the most part that I've spoken to also feels the same way. They're like, "Huh? People are mad about what?" So, but I did because I don't like that people may feel that I'm speaking about them, like gossiping and stuff. And I kind of after I put the episode out, I was like, "Oh, like my family may think that this is gossipy." I'm gonna refrain from being a cunt because I want to say something else.
Okay, good.
But good job, nice work, Josh. But I could have like just been like, "Hey, Dad, this is what I said on the podcast." Da, da, da. But he also just had his knee surgery, like literally like a 2 to 3 days before he had a knee replacement before I put the episode out. And I had FaceTimed him and was talking, and I was like, he literally, poor guy, like can't walk, can't do anything. He's in a lot of pain. Like I'm like, I don't want to be like, oh, by the way, I said this about you on the podcast. Like I just felt not like the right moment. And then I kind of justified it by nothing I said was that bad. The only thing that I might have or that I might like reconsider was when I was telling a story about one of my sisters and I said at the end of it, I was like, how can I tell my sister stop being such a cunt? And I laughed about it. I say that word all the time, willy-nilly, no big deal. And
Okay.
the sister that I said that about, she doesn't even care. We've talked about it
hmm
and
Would you
it's not even a thing that
would you like to take this time to offer her an apology for calling her a cunt publicly?
I don't know. Because I just feel like that's the way I speak.
Okay.
Like, and I don't
And that's
mean
fine.
like
All of
you're a
this is
cunt.
fine.
That's just the way I speak. So
All of
like
this is fine. These are
if
just
her feelings were
questions.
hurt, then I would, and then moving forward, I would maybe not do that again.
Okay.
But like because she probably knows that it was in jest and it was me just like word vomiting and making light of the situation. So
hmm
like, I mean, no. If she was upset, I would talk to her and apologize for it.
Okay.
But like that's the way that I speak. And so if it hurts someone's feelings the way that I speak, then they can bring that to me. End scene.
Acknowledging that you do have a fair amount of privilege, which does not detract from your experience. But acknowledging that
I
you
think a
do have
little
a
bit.
fair amount of ooh,
I got
perspiration.
sweaty pits.
Acknowledging you do
Perspiration.
have a fair amount of privilege. You know, you still have a family of origin unit. You still talk to your family. You do
Mhm.
not have threats of violence.
From my family.
from your family.
Threats of
Yes,
violence. Yes.
exactly.
Okay.
Um,
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
what advice do you have to other queer folk who are thinking about having tough conversations, may have been inspired by our original episode, and who are now hearing that even you are suffering from difficult conversations? What advice do you have to people who are thinking about having this conversation, knowing that it could be challenging like it was for you?
Mm. I mean, I would probably first say, like, get really clear about what your message is and what you're trying
It's
to
great
say
advice.
and accomplish
Yeah.
with that conversation. And because it wasn't a conversation, it was you and I talking about it. So it was a little bit more free. It was a conversation with us, but it wasn't a conversation with specific family and friends. So I would need to sit back and think about how I would want to formulate that. And also, like, considering those people's perspectives as well, because for me, like, I do have a relatively supportive family in the sense that, yes, they love me. They have
Mhm.
supported other things that I've worked on. And I've said it in the first episode, I have it better than a lot of other gay men whose families completely abandon them when they come out of the closet. And I think it's also important to highlight the good things that people have maybe done for you
Yeah. And
when
we're going
you
to get to
are
that in a minute.
okay. Yeah. So, like, and I did that on the episode. I said a lot
Absolutely.
of good things, and I said literally what I'm saying right now, that I have support and I have a family that loves me. And just because you're not an ally
Mhm.
doesn't mean you're homophobic or you hate me or anything like that. But it's another level to caring about your gay family member. So I just think that getting clear headed and clear about what your
Mhm.
message is and what you're trying to accomplish with that conversation.
If I can insert a little bit of a mom vibe, I would
Yes,
also
mommy.
say, if you're considering it from the queer perspective, have your sense of emotional safety prepared, whether that is a good friend, whether that is a therapy session, um, whether that is a self-care activity, something that you do that brings you a lot of peace and some grounding. Also really consider
Mhm.
that, because you did have a good therapy session afterwards, which you're fortunate to have. I was checking in with you all day, other people were checking in with you. um, I think that's important. My next question is,
Crazy how,
oh yeah.
like, this was a bigger deal to other people than it was to me at the time. And maybe I just, like, had, like, compartmentalized it, but, like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
people texting, like you're saying, and being like, "How is it being received? What are
Yeah.
people saying?" And I was like,
Well,
I don't know." But I also really like pointing out, like, the aftermath of it, like you said.
so
Like,
my
there is going to be, whether good or bad, there's going to be something that happens after. So how are we gonna deal with that?
my next question for you is, in terms of positive responses, how was it for you hearing positive responses, and did you receive any responses that were pleasantly surprising for you that you would like to share?
Share with the class. I mean, there was an overwhelmingly positive response, and again, because I was just doing this because it was something I felt like I wanted to
You were
share,
doing
just
it
like
for
I
you.
didn't consider the negative responses for me. I also didn't really consider the positive, but it's also very nerve-wracking when you put something out there. Like,
Absolutely.
for me, this is a creative outlet. When I do my paintings, that's a creative outlet. It's
Hmm.
scary when I have a booth at an art festival because people can walk by and be like, "Well, that's terrible art," or they're gonna love
Or
it,
no
or they're
thanks.
gonna be in the middle, or "No, gracias." Like, they might
Yes.
not be into it. And so putting out a podcast, also me speaking has always been something that I'm really vulnerable about. Like, in school, I hated reading in the class. When you got called on and you had to read the fucking novel because people would bully me so bad. So up
Yeah,
until
that
even
makes me
now, like, I
sad.
hate speaking in front of people, which is funny because I teach group fitness classes, so I have to be yelling, but I get in a zone where I'm not thinking about it. Just like when I'm podcasting, I'm not thinking about it. And so when I go back and I'm editing it, there's times when I'll say things and I'm like, "Oh, you sound like so gay," or whatever. And I'm like, "I am so gay." Like, who fucking cares? And I'm getting, like, better at that, but that is more of a concern for me because, for example, when I had my YouTube before, people would comment and be like, "He looks like he has AIDS." Like, this faggot, whatever. So putting things out there like this is very, very scary and vulnerable, and people
Yeah.
don't always realize
I'm glad that you're finally
The
realizing how I hate the word brave, and I think that's my own reaction to, but
brave.
I'm glad that you finally realized that a lot of this is really vulnerable and it is, courageous to go off and do these things and also to reframe your insecurities. Like, it's funny, I hear your
Right.
voice. I don't think it's like I hate when people use the word gay to describe things.
I know.
I'm
Me
like,
too.
choose a better word. Like the
Not a
English
fan.
language is
Yeah.
so vast. Like pick a better
Yeah.
word. Um, you've always just sounded like you to me. And when I hear you say these things, sorry, I keep looking off because there are um these crazy ass birds on my terrace. They're my
Birds
ADHD is like, ooh,
on your
birds on my
terrace. There's
terrace.
birds on the
Oh my
terrace.
God. Oh, well, I hope my dog sees it. He's so cute. He would love to eat them. But
Well, let's
what I
not
was
let him eat them.
what I was trying to say is hearing you say these things makes me feel so sad for younger you.
Yeah,
Like it
and these are
breaks
things
my
that
heart.
people that know me, like even like will always be like, you're just Josh. This is just the way you speak. Like they don't think about my mannerisms or whatever. But I think about them
Of
because I've
course
been
you do.
forced to by people that judge them for so long,
And I
right?
think a lot
But
of us can, oh, there goes my earbud. I think a lot of us, whether you are gay or an ally, can identify with that because I was always told I was
yeah,
too much, I was too loud, I was too abrasive, I was too this. I hate the sound of my own
and you
voice.
are all
And
of
I
those
am
things. No,
all
I'm
of those
kidding.
things, but that doesn't detract from my value. And
Totally.
those are also
And
things
that's
that
too much
people
maybe for other people who don't belong with you.
and those are things that we were just taught as a society are like, oh, it's just not good. It's not good. When really it's like, no, actually like I have I've helped a lot of people by just being who I am and saying what's on my mind.
Right.
And you being you inherently has just I think it's so wonderful that you have always just been you. And I love you and I will fucking fight anyone who says otherwise. Um,
Good. Please kill them. I didn't even answer your question.
oh,
The positive
my bad.
feedback.
Yeah, sorry, the
Oh,
positive
yeah.
feedback.
No, there was, of course, an overwhelmingly positive response and a lot of nice things that were said to me. I hadn't considered, like you said, being brave. I never once thought I was brave for speaking about that. And I still don't because to me, it was just something that needed to be spoken about. You shared it with your husband's family and you showed me their responses about like how it was a great episode on our behalf and very well spoken. I
Shout
honestly
out to my
really like when people
in-laws. They're
said,
the best.
yes, shout out to your in-laws. When people said that we were like really well spoken and like it sounded so professional and the quality of it because I also put a lot of time and effort into the
You
editing process
have,
of it and
yes.
making things, sound nice and professional and putting time and money and effort into it. And so those things almost stood out to me more because it's like good. It
That's what you're
sounds
looking
how I
for.
want it to.
But a
People are
lot of
receiving it
people
how I want
learned
to.
something. A lot of people said, hey, like I hadn't thought
Yes.
about these things. I hadn't considered that before. And
Yes, and you're right. Some of the things that people said that they were like, "Oh, really?" My initial reaction was to be irritated by the fact that they were messaging me saying like, "Oh, I are you sure? Is that true? Whatever." And then after yesterday, you pointed that out basically that
everyone's on their
on
own
the flip
path.
side of that, somebody still learned something, and that was the point of the episode. And so,
Absolutely.
although it was something so surprising to a lot of people, specifically about people getting the death penalty in some countries for being gay,
Anything. Could be
shocking to some
anything.
people, which a lot of people don't know that, or like other facts, but instead of people being surprised by it and that frustrating me, they're surprised by it because they don't know, but now they know.
Now they know.
So
And
flipping it around,
and
we
how
did what we meant to
wonderful
do.
is it that people are learning? They're going to be
Yeah.
curious. They're going to hopefully do what we say and go on and Google. Who knows what change we might have sparked by sharing a lot of this.
Yeah.
My last question for you, and then I have one point I would like to make, is what's next? What's not next for this podcast, but what do you see being next for you in this journey of trying to maybe heal yourself, grow, find peace with yourself, and reconnect with your family after having some of these really difficult conversations?
I think, well, okay, every week when I go to therapy on Tuesday, my therapist always says, what do you want to focus on for the rest of the week? And this is like the last 60 seconds that him and I have together.
Okay.
And So last week I said that I just wanted to bring the focus back to me for a little bit and like kind of like center myself, recharge, and just bring the focus back to me because my focus after this first episode came out was on everybody else and the responses, good and bad. And I feel like it's important for me right now to focus in on like really figuring out what I'm feeling and digesting the more negative responses and then figuring out what I want to do with those. Because usually I'm a person who reacts very quickly. I don't often step back and take time to think about what I'm going to do and or say.
Hmm.
Um not that I mean I used to lash out a lot. You've known me for a long time. And
Never
I would
had that
just
experience with you. I don't know what you're
no,
talking about.
I would just have a response, right? And so an older version of me would have responded right away to some of the not so nice text messages I received, but the new version of me is trying to process those in a healthy way
Yeah.
and breathe through it and figure out what it is that I want to say back
Hmm.
and also figure out what I want moving forward because currently I don't know. I am
And
in a
that's
place where
okay. You don't have
I
to
don't
know.
know who I want to keep around, who I want to, have a little bit more boundaries with. Um there's obviously conversations with people that have to be had, but I don't know how I want to go about them yet. And
That's okay.
for some people, that's usually for me, that's really stressful, not knowing because there's no action and
Mm,
I like
yeah.
action. But again, I'm sitting with that when in doubt, do nothing. And that has become my mantra. And I feel so good about not doing anything because I don't have to. Like, the
Yeah.
people that are upset about it are still gonna be upset in a week. They're still gonna be upset in a few months. That upset isn't going away.
Right.
Maybe it will go down a little bit with time, but, like, nothing's gonna change. So whether I have a
Yeah.
conversation now or later, the only thing that's gonna change is maybe we've had time to process everything and
Yeah.
can have a more constructive conversation.
And I
Because
think
maybe
that's an
if these things
important point
happen
to
now, it
make.
might not be good.
I'd like to end this podcast
No, we're never ending. This
by
episode is never
by
ending.
talking about two things. The first is um to all the allies and to anyone who is listening to this who is having tough conversations with others, and I'm talking to the people who are allies. Be aware
Mhm.
of the impact of your response. You are only able to control you. And if someone is coming to you to have a tough conversation, it means that they care enough about you and your relationship to have that tough conversation. They want you in their life.
Mhm.
And be aware of your response. When in doubt, just take some time for yourself. You are always well within your power to say, thanks for saying this to me. Thanks for having this conversation. I need to go away and take some time to think about this. But be aware because if someone, especially someone from a marginalized community, is coming to you to share some difficult things, be aware of your response because that might be
Right.
the last time that that might be their one final straw, their one final bid for connection. Not that that was
Yeah.
with you and your family at all, but just really be aware. I'd like to also just say that there's a charity that I care about deeply, deeply called Rainbow Railroad. They do some really incredible work around the globe with queer people and trans people from countries
Mhm.
where they are facing gender and sexual persecution, often by threats of death or violence. Please, $5, $10. Go check them out. Rainbow Railroad. They are phenomenal. June is coming. I know we're almost in May, but it doesn't have to be June for you to care about queer rights and trans rights. Please go and check them out. Please make a financial commitment. If you have someone queer, trans, gender nonconforming in your life, show them you care by not only just doing some work on yourself, but by doing something that could really help benefit someone else.
Yeah.
Because I've got queer people in my life that I love. Actually, almost everyone in my life that I love is queer or trans or someone. I was I
Facts.
was raised by I was raised by the gays. But
Yeah.
I love you, and I'm really proud of the work that you're doing, not just on this podcast, but on yourself.
Thank
And I
you.
think you deserve the best. And I think that we've done something else again today that we can be really proud of.
Yes, and I would like to have a monologue at the end of my
Oh, I'm
podcast.
sorry. Is this your podcast? Because
Your
my glass of
your
wine's almost
face.
done and I've got TV to watch.
we're we're almost done. Let's hydrate real
This was
quick.
this was Jessica's
Mm.
version of hot air.
This was. I love it. No, I actually really, really like this. I will say that if you're going to talk the talk, you should also walk the walk.
Mhm.
And me speaking out about allyship has also made me look at myself and see how much of an ally I am. Because just because I'm a gay man doesn't mean I automatically also get a pass to be an ally. Because let's be real, there are some gays that voted for Trump and will be like, I don't get Drag Race. I'm not gay. It's not my whole identity. I like sports. Like literally the things I see on Twitter, crazy.
A whole
But
other episode because I have a lot to say
no,
about
we're
that.
doing a whole episode on it. Don't worry. We have we both have a lot to say about. That one's gonna be savage. Um, but I think it's also important if you are part of the LGBTQ plus community to look at yourself and see what you have been doing. If you
Absolutely.
want other people to join you in that allyship, you kind of have to
Do the
set an
work.
example. And so there's more that I could definitely be doing.
Okay.
And I had another point.
You're welcome. I
What
think that
was
was
it?
what you were going for. So you love
No,
me
there was
and you're grateful
no,
for
there
my
was another
friendship
one.
and for
Oh,
joining you.
yes, yes, sure. Yeah, whatever. No, I was also going to say that it can be scary, although it wasn't scary for me, but it
Mhm.
can be scary when you're speaking your truth.
Yeah.
And it can be overwhelming when you are sharing something that may feel so vulnerable and something you may have been holding very close to you for a long time and putting it out there, whether it's in a podcast or a song or a poem or just a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
That is a lot for one human to do to express themselves
Yeah.
like that. And sometimes we don't receive the response that we would like or that we would hope, even if we did or did not anticipate one. But focusing in on what your truth was and what you were sharing, as opposed to what someone might be making it into. And when others take your truth and make it about them, they're missing the point. And that's when you can pause. If you don't know what to do, we do nothing and we think it through and go back to our therapist, Brian, and have some good conversations about
Shout
it.
out,
But it
Brian.
doesn't mean that you shouldn't share your truth.
Yeah.
My goal here is to continue to share my truth. Even though it ruffled some feathers, maybe I'll learn how to do it in a way that might be more palatable. I don't even know if I've ever used that word before, but I'm also learning things as I go, and this podcast is going to evolve as I evolve. And I would hope that people that receive the message,
Yeah.
whether they're pissed off or they're happy for me and
Hmm.
excited or have negative things to say, that they will also grow with the podcast.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I would love to have the people on that are happy about it and the people that are mad about it and talk it through. I think it would be so cool and so healthy and so neat to share with
Yeah.
people. We'll get there when we get
Isn't
there,
isn't
but
it a
keep
beautiful
speaking your
thing?
truth.
Isn't it a beautiful thing to be able to grow?
Beautiful. Yeah, we should always be changing. If we can be mad today about something and then think it through and be fine with it tomorrow. Like, it's really not that deep. We're only here one time. Like, come on.
Mm,
Right?
I love
Right.
you.
God bless. I was
Oh
going to
my
say
God,
God
did you
bless
actually
America, but this
freeze?
place is a shithole. Did
Hold
I
on.
freeze?
You froze. Yeah, you did. Okay, let's try
No.
this again.
No.
I love you. Cheers. Drain
Love
the
you.
drink.
Cheers. Until next time. Thanks, Jessica.